Welcome back to Inside the Mac. We got our week 2 preview for you coming today. A couple of things to start out looking at the betting lines that have been released so far by DraftKings. Buffalo, UMass, and Eastern Michigan. All of those have not, but with FCS opponents facing Mac, I don't know if those money lines will come out. We'll see. Sometimes those will come out later in the week as it is Thursday. A couple of the interesting ones that I thought, there's a lot of games with no money line. Kent State, Akron, and Ball State all have no money line. But that's because Kent State is taking on Texas Tech, Akron's taking on Nebraska, and Ball State's taking on Auburn. So it's kind of fair to not have a money line in that one just because the odds would probably be egregious. As we look into some of the other interesting ones, Western Michigan plus 285 underdog and a 10-point spread against North Texas. They're hosting North Texas. Ohio is plus 142 money line and a 3.5-point spread underdog home against West Virginia. And then Toledo, a minus 298 favorite, 7.5-point spread against Western Kentucky. Okay, some of those things that little bit stand out. Ohio's home against West Virginia, which that in itself is kind of interesting. So we'll see how that divulges in as we get later in it. I'll be putting my bet strip out probably tomorrow before the NIU game, because they're the only Friday game tomorrow. They come out plus 575 underdog against Maryland. A couple things on my mind right now as those look at those games of interest. We'll start with Central Michigan. All right, Central Michigan is taking on Pitt. They're on the road at Pittsburgh. They're plus 1,100 dog, plus 22.5-point spread. One thing that's interesting about Central is they're clearly trying to play bully ball. All right, now what does that mean? It means they're going to pound the rock. All right, they had 50 carries last week, 247 yards, 4.9 yards per carry. And here's the thing with that. If you're in the betting world, I'd hammer the unders right now. Maybe not in this one just because Pitt could put up a lot of points. We don't know. But here's the thing with bully ball. They're going to take a lot of that clock, which we saw against San Jose State. They want to use the clock. They want to take time to run the football. They're really only going to throw it when they have to or if they think they see an opening and a box is loaded. So it's not going to be at all a pass-first offense. It's going to be interesting to see how they play with that quarterback situation. So it looked like the tide might have flipped a little bit with the freshman Angel Flores kind of looking pretty good. So we'll see who is getting the brunt of the carries from the quarterback spot of it, who's getting the brunt of the snaps, because there's some interesting things I think we could see there. Do I think that Central Michigan has a chance of winning? Not really. But at the same time, hey, you never know. You never know. I think they could possibly cover that spread, and I say possibly. I'll be releasing my full predictions tomorrow. Just things to think about. Then we're looking at Miami of Ohio. They're on the road at Rutgers, plus 525 underdog, 15.5-point spread there. So Ohio looked really good against Rutgers. Fell short. If you take away that blocked punt, they might even win that ball game. But they didn't, all right? Now, Miami of Ohio looked rough offensively, 117 total yards of offense against Wisconsin. How did they do against Rutgers? I think Rutgers is worse than Wisconsin, so I think they have a better chance, and that was only a 17-point game. Once again, do I see Miami of Ohio winning? Not probably, but there is better chance here than I think Central has. The thing with Miami, though, they play their best football far and away later in the season, especially in conference play. Last 2 seasons, 14-2 combined record in the MAC. But, if you want to do something in the postseason, you got to win early. In these non-conference games, the MAC schedule's tough ones. They get some nice checks to go play these schools. It's going to be interesting. The thing that when you look at that 117 yards of offense, and obviously I'm very high on DeQuan Finn. He had a bad game. But up front, Miami of Ohio got dominated. Both sides of the ball, specifically on the offensive side, though, they weren't able to run the ball. They weren't able to sit in a pocket. I think there were 3 sacks on the game. Just dominated up front. And that'll change as they face MAC opponents, less opponents. I don't think Rutgers as good up front as Wisconsin, but you never know. The other thing that is interesting with that, Miami of Ohio's defense played very, very good against Wisconsin, I thought. So maybe they do something. I don't know. Then we got the Western Michigan game. They're home against North Texas. They're probably taking that quarterback battle into week 2. If it's a close game, you're going to see that shift. Those quarterback battles early in the season for teams, when you're playing either a far better opponent that you don't expect to win against or a far less opponent where it's almost a guaranteed win, you're going to see kind of even snaps. If Western finds themselves in a dogfight, you're going to start to see who they think is their guy and who they start leaning on. I don't even know between the two of them who I would lean towards in that, but we'll have to see what the staff thinks if that one does come down to it. Now, North Texas kind of looks legit. Their game was against Lamar, so quality win, not really, but they have 462 yards of offense, 51-0 win. Western had only 217 on offense. They gave up 341 on defense, which really is not that bad against a Michigan State who's been hyped up all summer long. And now this is the year they're turning the page and being a legitimate team. Now, I don't know, but I think that's a game. If you're Western Michigan, that would be a statement win. That would be a statement win if they could take down North Texas. I think kind of alert the MAC. Maybe Western is legit. Maybe that pick six at the end might have been the only way they got points on the board, but maybe they can do some things. Then Ohio. All right, this is a big opportunity for Ohio. After last week, I'm big on Ohio. I think they look phenomenal. I think Parker Navarro is playing mid to late season football already. He was the player of the week. He looked phenomenal. This is a big opportunity. They're hosting West Virginia, which is wild. That's a big thing. A big thing for a MAC school. That might be a pretty full crowd. I think they hold maybe around 30,000 if I remember correctly. There's a chance that's a sold-out crowd. Maybe not quite sold out, but it's going to be a big crowd with West Virginia coming to town, and they're not that big of underdogs. 3.5-point spread means that they think this is going to be within a touchdown, a one-possession game. Boy. But here's where Western Virginia kind of scares me a little bit. Now, this is against Robert Morris. Take that with a grain of salt. 625 yards of offense, almost 400 on the ground on 50-plus carries. They had the ball a lot. I think Ohio has the chance to do it. Do I think they do it? Those are two different conversations. So I don't exactly know. Then we're looking at Toledo. All right, Toledo's a favorite here. They got Western Kentucky. That, to me, is a game that Toledo kind of has to win. We talked about their path to the playoff, and they got to win out and do all the great things, and all of that is true. It is absolutely true, but that's a must-win in my opinion. 7.5-point spread for that game. Do I think they cover that? Well, it means I think they win, and I do kind of think they win. We'll see tomorrow when I release my official predictions, but that could be an interesting one. But it's a must-win. If you're a Toledo fan, you're a MAC fan, you want to see a MAC school get far, you need Toledo to win. MAC schools that are on the brink of getting their first win, Miami of Ohio over Rutgers, I don't know if I love that. Western Michigan over North Texas, I like it a little more. Buffalo likely going to win against St. Francis. UMass against Bryant. Those are two games, and then we'll look at Eastern over Long Island. So I think those three teams, UMass, Buffalo, and Eastern, they're going to get in the win column. I think Toledo gets in the win column probably over Western Kentucky, which then leaves Akron, Ball State. Don't think either of them is possibly even covering those spreads against Nebraska and Auburn. I think they'll stay winless. Kent State got their win already. I don't think if they go 2-0 against Texas Tech, boy, are we going to have some wild conversations next week. So we'll see. We'll see how a lot of these games shape up. Tomorrow we'll have full predictions breaking down what I think is going to actually happen in these games. We'll talk about bet slips, all that fun stuff. That's coming up Friday morning on Inside the MAC.